My name's Chris from CGM Industries. In this video I'm going to install a P3 gauge into my T3 Touareg. This is a 2013 model. You'll see I'm currently running one of our gauge pods here. I'm using a P3 DIY 52 mil gauge, and the reason I'm switching this is because I want to move this one over to my GTI, and I'm going to put this one in here so I still have a gauge in this car. So all we need for this is a couple of different trim tools. I also have some picks. I'll figure out what makes the most sense once we start pulling this apart, and I also have some zip ties just to clean up the wiring behind the fuse panel cover here. To start, I'm just going to pop this panel off. We got a couple clips, and there's two studs. They come with these, the Touaregs come with these little silicone type things. They keep it from rattling, so make sure you don't lose those. I think you can see I got a control box here already from the existing gauge. I'm just going to try to run this right in without swapping it, but this is OBD2 based, so you're basically just running this cord down. I routed it down in the back here, and it comes into the footwell, and the OBD plug is right here on these cars, so this is super easy to wire. That's one thing that I really like about this. It's probably the easiest thing to install that you can get, and it displays a lot of the stuff that the car already has in the system but isn't necessarily displayed on some of these older models. So we can get this out of here. I'm gonna have to go find the vent that I pulled out of here, or I'll just 3D print a new one. To install this, we're going to have to pop this silver piece of trim forward so that we can get this vent assembly out of here. You can actually feel the side of it in this cavity, so I know that there's nothing holding it in back here. It just slides into the ducting behind the dash. I believe there's clips along the edge of here, so we're going to see what we find behind that. This is pretty tight here, so I'm going to use a pick tool just to pry that out enough so I can get a trim tool behind it. That fall down in there. It's gold luckily, so I'll be able to see it. On the bottom we just have one connector that's for the illumination on the dial here. I also have two little rubber things that fell off. I assume they're just to keep the thing from rattling, so I'll figure out where they came off of too. Alright, that clip was a little difficult to get out of there. So we got this little nub there. I had to pick that this way. Pull it out. No, that way. Over here. And that released the tab so I could slide that out of there. Now that we got this, we can assemble this on the bench. So we have to pop the vanes out of this. These are usually just held in with a, yeah, it looks like we just got a little tab in there. We just got some pins on the side that hold it into this body. So that comes out easy. And then I think you just remove these top two, and then this has pins on it that'll slide back into this adjuster, so this can all stay as one. Yeah, width looks right. Now these just slide in. There's nothing actually retaining it other than the fitment of the pin. So just be gentle, otherwise the whole thing's going to fall apart. I started with just putting one edge on first, and then putting that down on the table to kind of hold it. So I use this hand to line up these pins and then put that front bar on. And then I put the adjuster bar that holds them in parallel last. That just seemed like the easiest way to get them all lined up because there's less pins on that last one because the screen's not pinned into that bar on the back here. So I'll pop this in the assembly now. I'm going to try to do this without drilling any holes. I think that's usually what they suggest. And I'm going to fish this through so I can still shut the flapper door too. It's nice that they give you a ribbon cable instead of a bunch of loose cables. Yeah, that looks like it'll work. Alright, so I'm looking at this again. What I should have done was run it through, because we have these inner vanes as well that go left-right. I should have gone top left because that's where the cord comes out of the screen or the display. So I'll go in that way, come out the back left here. I can tuck it around. This slides back into the ducting in the dash. There's some foam there, so there's room for the wires to not get pinched when that slides back in. Yeah, it fits really nice in there. So I'm just going to wrap that around the back here. I can slide this in, and I'll have access to run this down to the control box in the fuse panel area. I'll put this in, I'll make sure I get my connector back attached as well. While I was assembling this, I saw this little guy fall out of there. It's a little pin with a spring on the back that goes in this standoff here, this dial, the center of that sits on this peg. This just popped out of there, so I'm going to slide that back in there first. And I can get this back in place. And now we got that nice clicky sound again. I put that pin back in there and I noticed there's a channel built in for the wiring. I always look at stuff from German cars and it's so over-engineered, but it's so cool to see how much time someone spent on just this assembly. You know, as someone that designs car parts myself, it's always neat to see what other people are doing, and I mean, this is way more involved than stuff we typically make, but it's always cool to get ideas from stuff like this. And I mentioned two little rubber things that fell off. They just sit on the back of this piece of trim here. So there's two on the top and two at the bottom, same spot. And I also have this little black piece of trim that goes in here. That only fits one way because this is not quite the same shape. It's not a perfect rectangle. And I'll put this last piece of trim in here. Make sure that I push this in without creasing that trim around the dash cluster. One thing I forgot to mention, when you're sliding this back in to the vent assembly, there's a little V shape on the back that has to slide into the vertical slots that are still in the assembly, and that lets you still tilt your vanes left and right. So I already had a P3 gauge in here. I already have a box mounted. This is just zip tied to a hole that was already in there, and I used some 3M tape to keep it from vibrating, and then I just ran that down, connected to my OBD port below, so I can get this plugged in here. And I'll just bundle this up real quick. So we got this all set up. I like how this looks. It was really easy to install. I think start to finish it took me less than 35 minutes. Thanks for watching.